Namaste nerds, this is Navana, the Budget Pub Stomper, and today we're going to be doing something I don't think I've ever done on the channel before. This is a total revamping of a deck that I personally love. This has been like a passion project of mine since the day I saw Belbe Corrupted Observer spoiled. Now, you may have noticed the card that was highlighted before I switched to Belbe was the Endstone. Okay, so check this out. There's a story. I'm going to go into a little story time about how I came to decide it was time to completely redefine and reinvent my Belbe Corrupted Observer build. Man, I wish I would have saved the old list. I didn't. I guess I could go back and kind of retroactively like remove all. I could duplicate it and then I could take out all of the pieces that I've added, and so it would be a project. I guess if you're interested in what the deck used to look like, watch the last Belbe video. It wasn't all that long ago. It was very powerful and it looked nothing like this. And this is Belbe with all the bugs worked out. Like, she is blowing smoke, guys. Like, this deck is, I don't know, in gold fishing, I haven't played it in a real pod yet. But in gold fishing, it feels like a top contender. And it all started with this little guy right here, the Endstone. And it's an interesting story because the Endstone I didn't think was within budget. I thought this was going to come out as a $20 mythic or something. And so there was kind of a long story about how the Endstone caused me to reinvent this entire deck. But we've got time, you and I, do we not? But I literally sat down to record this video, and I was thinking, like, I think it's time to when Belbe was first spoiled, a lot of CEDH players were trying to make a good CEDH version, and there basically ended up being kind of two camps. There was the Belbe Ad Nauseam group, and then there was like the Belbe Stacks camp. And I don't know that anything much got figured out as far as who was right and who was wrong, other than neither deck was particularly good, and the projects got scrapped. But in budget, I have found her very effective. What does this have to do with the Endstone? Okay, so I saw the Endstone, and when I saw the Endstone spoiled, I just started thinking, like, that's a very powerful effect, but what decks can play that? Like, the first place I thought for the Endstone was I thought I could probably test it in my CEDH, and I'm thinking just like what CEDH decks can test this, because I thought it was going to be a $20 card. So my first thought was Malcolm Kedis, and I thought maybe I can try to jam this into my Malcolm Kedis deck. That thing has just tons of treasures laying around all the time, and it needs draw. And it plays Magda in the 99, and it's a pretty often tutored. It's an oft-tutored piece. Magda, I mean. So Magda can find the Endstone. So there seems to be some natural synergy there. So as I was sitting down to record this Belbe update video, maybe 25 minutes ago, I sat down to record the video, and I looked at the price of the Endstone. I put the Endstone in up here just to see, like, hey, out of curiosity, I wonder how much it would have to drop before I could actually fit it into this version. And it's $6. And I'm like, oh boy, I've got work to do. Because obviously I'm going to put that in the budget. I mean, that's not a small piece. That's a big ad. But I had some expensive pieces. Some pieces that I thought maybe I don't need. So the other thing is, so there's more to the story of how the Endstone's printing got me to reinvent Belbe. And the other big piece to the story is, when I saw the Endstone, it made me think of a card that I've been playing for a long time, but that I feel like most people are sleeping on, and I mean even in CEDH, but just in Commander in general. But that I've got in some decks, and it made me just kind of realize, wait a second. I was drawing the very obvious similarities between the Endstone and that demon which has not yet been revealed, that is very much like the Endstone. And I was thinking, I'm like the only person that plays that in any decks. And I've got it in a kind of fringe CEDH deck, and then I've got it in some budget builds. And that card is, it's a demon. So I suppose it'd be up in the creatures. It's Infernal Sovereign. And so Infernal Sovereign was like 50 cents. And I saw the Endstone came out, and I thought, or was spoiled, and I thought the Endstone is going to be very powerful, and people are going to be looking for a budget version of that effect, and they're going to look at Infernal Sovereign eventually. And so I just bought 5 of these. I've got a couple already, but I just went out and I spec'd on them, thinking that this, I was thinking this $20 plus mythic, and maybe the Endstone will be a 20 plus mythic at some point, but I was thinking this $20 mythic, people are going to play with this and see how powerful this effect is, and they're going to look for a budget version, and they're going to find almost an exact replica of that card on a body, and they're going to start buying it up. And so this should be a good spec. Now, mind you, I was thinking about the Endstone I thought it might be good in Wheeliad, like CDH Wheeliad, the Wheels Heliod, Azorius deck. And I do think it'd be just crazy in that deck. The Endstone, not the Demon. But then, yeah, I thought Belbe. And then it kind of made me realize now, as obvious as that is, and, I mean, I'm already playing demons in this deck and big, scary monsters in this budget deck. But I wasn't playing Infernal Sovereign. So that was kind of like step 2 on my path to kind of rebuilding Belbe. Now, the other big thing was I knew that I've always known, I've known since I first started testing CEDH Belbe, that the big problem with Belbe is a problem that will eventually be hashed out. And the problem has always been there simply are not enough 1 mana pingers, like these Mardu Shadow Spear effects, these Night Market Lookout effects, these things that just can tap to deal 1 damage to each opponent, or when they attack they deal 1 damage to each opponent. I think we had 5 of them, something like that. And that's not enough to be able to really count on having 1 of them in your opening hand, and it's not really even enough to mulligan hard for them. There's no guarantee that you're going to get to 1 before you go to 4 or 3 cards. Also, I thought, that the 2 mana versions, there's some of those, but we could even use a couple more of those. So that's always been the limitation. So there were some problems solved a while ago with Belbe. I should read this commander. I don't want to lose my train of thought, though. Let me finish the train of thought. We'll come back to read the commander, and then we'll talk about how I gave this deck the ultimate facelift, and now it's fucking crazy. All right, so already lost my train of thought. Pingers. All right, so we started picking up interesting pingers. I didn't know about that. Like I knew one of the big, the big pickups that we got for Belbe since I first started trying to brew CEDH Belbe was Hoarding Broodlord. But Hoarding Broodlord went into my the Belbe deck tech that I've already got on the channel. I'm guessing it was about 6 months ago. Hoarding Broodlord was already in that build. We've had that for a while. But that's a big get for Belbe because we don't have to, in this deck, we don't have to pitch this into the graveyard and reanimate it. We can honestly just cast this out of our hand. This is one we can just, we'll get to reading the card in a moment, but what Belbe does is produces crazy amounts of surplus mana. That's what she does. So the Hoarding Broodlord was a big pickup. That's what made me kind of interested in actually putting the deck up on the channel. Is when I kind of realized, oh wait, this is a real synergy and it's budget viable because Hoarding Broodlord isn't that expensive. Now, so we got Hoarding Broodlord, and now we've got, 2 or 3 more 1 mana pingers than we used to have, and at least 1 more good 2 mana pinger than we used to have. And that's enough, right? But it didn't stop there. We got the Endstone, which caused me to remember Infernal Sovereign, which I've been playing in Rakdos, Lord of Riots, and it's just crazy. So those were kind of all the steps that made me think I should redo this deck. So I started rebuilding it, and I found so many good payoffs that didn't used to exist. Now there's another big kind of a big step in the right direction that Belbe's gotten, and especially budget Belbe. It's never been, it's always been kind of complicated how many lands we want to run in the deck. That's always been kind of a tough thing to work out. So having access to the MDFCs is also really good. Like Bogart Trawler at 99 cents. This is a place to dump colorless mana. Well, I guess, I just have to talk about the commander now. So suffice to say, there's been a number of crazy things that have made this deck way better than it used to be. If I go down to some of the most recent cuts and some of the even things that are still in the considering board. I mean, I was until today. No, not till today. But until very recently, I was playing Cut of the Prophets and Jeweled Amulet, and let's look at the recent history. Shared Summons is a good piece. I just, my A plus B combos are just not the kind of combos that you're necessarily looking to find off of Shared Summons. But until very recently, I was playing cards like, you can see I've been doing a lot of iterating here. This is a little bit slow of a process. Skyclave Relic. This was honestly just a place for me to park 6 colorless mana. Ambition's Cost, right? Just a place to park 3 mana. I was so when I first started building the budgetized version of the deck, I was having a real hard time finding payoffs for all of this colorless mana that actually felt worth a shit. And now we're swimming in them. Now it's just a few months later, and I'm having to cut ones that I'd actually like to have in the deck. But let's read that freaking commander. Okay, so if you're not familiar, Belbe Corrupted Observer says, so for a black and a green, so 2 mana, at the beginning of each player's post-combat main phase, that player adds colorless, wingding, for my nitpicking nerds fans out there. So 2 exactly colorless mana for each of your opponents who lost life this turn. So what that means is that if you're able to damage all 3 of your opponents, then when you go to your post-combat, your second main phase, you're going to get flooded with 6 mana. You just get 6 mana dumped into your lap. Here's 6 mana. And honest to God, very often, probably most of the time, if just barely, that is going to be doable on turn 2. Literally, we can load the deck with things like Ugin the Ineffable, and we can cast that son of a bitch on turn 2. And that reduces all of our other colorless spells by 2 mana. But very often, I mean, if we're not getting this 3 mana or this 6 mana injection dumped into our lap on turn 2, 75 to 80% of the time we'll get it on turn 3, and always we're getting it on turn 4. I'd say it's higher. Almost always we get this on turn 3, but the deck kind of does require that you get all of the pieces that you need, or some version of each piece that you need, and that redundancy hasn't been available, but now it is. Now it really is. Now we really can mulligan for turn 1 Pinger, turn 2 Belbe, and then turn 2 or turn 3 payoff, right? Big mana payoff. So this is the big mana deck of the budget format as far as I'm concerned. It used to be when I would play Belbe, probably half of the time or more, my turn 1 play was an elf or a Birds of Paradise, which I did have to take out of the deck to make room. But it's just not that important a piece in the deck. You'd honestly way rather start the game with a Mardu Shadow Spear than with the Birds of Paradise in this particular deck. So we do have the dorks, and I was just thinking maybe it would be wise to run some of those the dorks that I play in budget Kennen that I think there's the text is something like it's 1 green, and then it's like a 1/2 or a 1/1. There's 3 or 4 versions. They're like spring leaf drum creatures. And since we don't really go to combat with Belbe, we're not holding her up as a blocker. It might be better to actually switch 1 or 2 of these elves out for one of those guys. But maybe not. I digress. Doesn't matter. This is the package we're running with now, and I'm totally happy with it. So I've been brewing on this deck for, God, like I feel like I've been. It's been 2 days, 48 hours, but I've just been thinking about it all the time. And so I still remain engaged. Like I say, I made my last cuts only not hours ago, like minutes ago, minutes before this video started. So what we're planning on doing with the deck is turn 1, mana, like not mana dork, but pinger. And let me go through some of the pingers. Mardu Shadow Spear says, whenever Mardu Shadow Spear attacks, each opponent loses 1 life. Okay, so we've got turn 1 Shadow Spear, turn 2, and we're just playing lands. So turn 1, we play a land, we cast our Shadow Spear. Turn 2, we play another land, we cast Belbe, we attack with Shadow Spear. When we do that, we go to post-combat main phase. Now we have 6 colorless mana. What do we do with it? Well, we can do stacksy things with it. This deck is an amalgamation of different things. We've got just what we're trying to do is just busted stuff, right? We're trying to ramp into broken things. We're trying to better utilize this extra excess of mana than what any other deck ought to be able to do. Because remember, this is the catch here is this effect works for everybody at the table. Now, everybody at the table is not playing evasive threats or let alone pingers that hit everybody simultaneously. And it says specifically you get 2 mana for each of your opponents who lost life. So occasionally somebody's going to realize that they can use your Belbe, and they're going to use your Belbe and get like an extra 2 mana on their post-combat main phase. That'll happen sometimes. But their deck isn't built to do that, first of all. Second, they're not going to be often able to make 4 mana. Third, they're not almost ever going to be able to make 6 mana. And whatever number I'm on, third, fourth, their deck is not built to take advantage of that just gobs and gobs of colorless mana the way that ours is. Like we're very able to go turn 1 Pinger, turn 2 Belbe, turn 3 Ugin. Or turn 3, well, let's just say turn 4. Let's see, we go turn 1 Pinger, turn 2 Belbe, turn 3. We're untapping with 3 lands, at least, right? We've at least got that much mana. We've got a Pinger. Maybe turn 2 we played a Dork. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we just have 3 lands and a Pinger. So that's going to give us access to 9 mana on turn 3. So how are we going to utilize 9 mana on turn 3? Well, the best thing we can do is entwine a Tooth and Nail and just win the game on the spot. That's the best thing we can do. But there's other pretty damn close to that good of things we can do. We've got mana dumps like Stargaze, where if we have 9 mana available to us on turn 3, that's got us basically sculpting a perfect hand. We can pump 7 mana into X, which means we look at 14 cards. We pick the 7-card hand we want. We put the rest of our stuff into the graveyard, which is undoubtedly going to include some monster that we're dumping into the graveyard that we can reanimate next turn. If we're not able to just sculpt a winning hand that wins the game on the spot, or peer into the abyss, right? We can just draw half our deck on turn 3. And again, this is not Magic Christmas Land. Like, this is what the deck is designed to do, and it does it. But now the newer versions, the craziest, well, the newest, craziest stuff we've got, we've got plenty of just, like, normal nasty things to do with 9 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 mana, like Hoarding Broodlord, win the game. Peer into the Abyss, win the game. Entwine Tooth and Nail, win the game. Rasaketh with little critters in play, win the game. We've got those things, but now we've also got, and KOZILEK. You get to play, unironically play, KOZILEK the Great Distortion in your competitive deck. I think this probably would even go... I would at least test this in my CEDH version of this deck. This card is so insanely powerful, and it's not a stretch to be able to cast this on turn 3 in this deck, and it's not at all a stretch to be able to... I mean, you will be able to play it on turn 4 almost certainly. And not to mention if you were like taking it to full budgetless where you're putting all the fast mana in, yeah, you could definitely get to your KOZILEK on turn 3. I mean, if you have KOZILEK in hand, you'll be able to cast it on turn 3. So what are other people doing with their 2 Belbe mana? They're not casting 10 mana Eldrazi, that's for sure. And when you drop this guy into play, you draw up to 7. You draw back up to a 7, like a full grip of cards. And you have a 12/12 with a menace that says discard a card with converted mana cost X to counter target spell with converted mana cost X. It's very difficult for you to lose that game. If you get to a turn 3 KOZILEK, now you've dumped a lot of your hand to get there, sure, but now you draw back up to 7 cards. You've got a big ass 12/12 Eldrazi with menace, and you've got a full grip, and you've got the ability to counterspell your opponent's cards just by discarding maybe cards you don't even need anymore. You know, somebody goes to fire off a Swords to Plowshare at your KOZILEK, and you discard a Elves of Deep Shadow you don't need anymore, or a Mardu Shadow Spear that you don't need anymore. I mean, when we're talking about competitive decks, most decks are running about the same, like, well, the very highest percent of their cards are going to be 1, 2, and 3 mana. And even though we have some outliers, I mean, the outliers that we have are cards that we're not going to want to get rid of anyway. Although, actually, does it say, yeah, discard a card? It's a discard outlet. We could, if somebody happens to try to, like, fire off Peer into the Abyss, we could maybe discard a 7 mana thing and reanimate it. Neither here nor there. Getting off topic a little bit. So for those of you who didn't see the deck list to begin with, let me just go over some of the kind of key players in the deck. So we've got Belbe that's just meant to give us a ton of mana, but we have to get one of those pingers online. Hopefully turn 1, if not turn 2. And I think I only had, to get my density that I really want, I had to leave exactly 1 3-mana pinger in the deck, although it's probably on the chopping block. Loyal Subordinate, the main reason that I kind of still want it in the deck, or I'm still using it in the deck, is because it does cost exactly 2 colorless, which is that's a big thing in this deck, like just being able to put your colorless mana to use. And we can put our colorless mana to use with Loyal Subordinate. Some games are going to go into a beatdown situation. It's just going to go that way when you're playing a bunch of stacks effects. These hate beasts like big-ass Terastodons and the biggins, but they are biggins that are also stacks pieces. So that 3 damage per turn, that's not nothing in this deck. It actually does matter. And we've got effects that want us to sacrifice creatures, so the fact that this is another body, also not nothing. But we're trying to get a pinger in play, and then a payoff, and we're trying to get to one of our win conditions, and our main win combo is Mycaius the Unhallowed plus Triskelion. And normally we're getting to that by way of Tooth and Nail Entwined, right? Like we'll actually sometimes have to spend a tutor to find this tutor, just because it gets it all done in one shot. Tooth and Nail says choose 1. You can search your library for 2 creatures, or you can put up to 2 creatures from your hand onto the battlefield, but you can pay 2 extra mana to do both of those things. So for 7 mana, you can tutor for both of your things. For 7 mana, if you happen to have them in your hand already, you can drop them into play. For 9 mana, which is exactly the number that we get to on turn 3 if everything goes right. And it doesn't have to go that right. It just has to go, pretty right. Then we can that's the exact number of mana we get to get... we go turn 1 land, pinger, turn 2, Belbe. Well, turn 2, land, Belbe. Leads us to turn 3, land, attack with pinger, cast Tooth and Nail entwined, which puts my Chaos, the Unhallowed, and Triskelion both into play. It tutors them out and into play. My Chaos is a 6 mana 5/5, so you can just hard cast this. It has Intimidate, and it says whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy that human. And it says other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. Undying means when a creature with Undying dies, if it didn't have a +1 counter on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control and put a +1 counter on it. So Triskelion says it's normally a 1/1. It ETBs with 3 +1 counters. You can remove a +1 counter to deal 1 damage to any target. So what you've got to do when you get both of these into play, and this costs 6 colorless, so this is not at all difficult to get into play. But what we do to win the game when we've got our combo in play is we remove a counter to ping somebody. We remove another counter to ping somebody else. No, I'm sorry. Because my Chaos the Unhallowed gives Triskelion an extra +1/+1 counter, it comes into play as a 2/2 naturally. So we're going to have to remove 1 counter to ping one opponent. And then the next counters we remove from the Triskelion to deal damage to the Triskelion itself. So we have to use the Triskelion to kill the Triskelion so that it leaves play and my Chaos the Unhallowed gives it Undying. It comes back into play. And then it gets the extra +1/+1 counter, which we can use to deal 1 point of damage to one opponent. And then we ping the last 2 at the Triskelion, killing itself, and it comes back, and we ping a player, and so on and so forth. It wins the game. Other ways to win the game are Hoarding Broodlord. So if we have a reanimation package in the deck, but a lot of times we can just plop this guy into play. We're going to get 6 mana with our Belbe. We get our 6 Belbe mana. We pour 5 into Hoarding Broodlord. And a lot of times we'll pour another colorless mana into playing a Talisman or an Arcane Signet or some way to wash our mana, to fix our mana for black. Although you can just tap one of your pingers because this allows you to convoke it into play, so you can tap a black creature and use 5 of your 6 Belbe mana to cast the Hoarding Broodlord. Hoarding Broodlord ETBs, you tutor up a card and it gets exiled, and then that card can be cast with Convoke. Usually the first thing you're going to tutor up with Hoarding Broodlord is, what's the name of the card? Saw in Half. Then you're going to Convoke cast the Saw in Half, targeting the Hoarding Broodlord, which is going to make 2 copies of the Hoarding Broodlord. And just an example of a thing you can do then is you can use one of those token copies to find Sacrifice, and you can use the other to find Peer into the Abyss. Then you can tap one of the Hoarding Broodlords to Convoke cast the Sacrifice, sacrificing the one that convoked it, adding 8 black mana to your mana pool, and then you will use the other Hoarding Broodlord to Convoke cast Peer into the Abyss, paying for 1 of its mana. So that will pay for 1 of the 8, and then you've got the mana floating from Sacrifice to cast the rest of it. You're going to draw half your deck and look for a win condition that way. The most compact win condition is Wither Bloom Apprentice, Chain of Smog. I'm normally not a huge fan of this combo. If you've not seen it, Wither Bloom Apprentice says Magecraft, which just means whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And this can be used to, this isn't out of place in the deck. This is kind of a pinger for Belbe. So this will help you generate Belbe mana also. And hopefully when people see it, that's how they think of it. Maybe they, they're probably going to put you on Chain of Smog if they've seen the combo before, but they might not put you on having it in hand. So most of the time when you cast your Witherbloom Apprentice, you're going to not do that unless you have Chain of Smog in hand. But you've got plausible deniability because you can use this as a pinger in the deck. Chain of Smog says, for a black and a colorless, target player discards 2 cards from their hand. Then that player may choose to copy this spell and choose new targets for the copy. Something like that. So you're able to target yourself. And if you do, then you're the player that may choose to copy this again. And you can choose to target yourself with the copy. If you do that, you're going to be able to do that over and over and over. Which will, because of the Magecraft trigger, triggering for cast or copies, that will burn the table out dead. The problem is it also costs you your entire hand. So you have to be hellbent. You have to go hellbent to do this. You have to discard all of your cards in order to make this work. Now, that's a big downside. There's lots of blowout potential. So I normally don't play this combo in decks that don't have access to countermeasures, we'll say. My countermeasures, by countermeasures, actually what I'm usually talking about, would be cards like Dosan and Grand Abolisher and, well, in this deck, the Veils. Autumn's Veil and Veil of Summer. Especially in budget, you can feel pretty safe going for the combo after you've cast one of these Veils. So you can start the turn by casting Veil of Summer or Autumn's Veil. They have very similar text. 1 green, it says basically spells you control can't be countered, and permanents you control have hexproof from black and blue. Autumn's Veil, spells you control can't be countered by blue or black spells, and creatures you control can't be the target of blue or black spells. Pretty much the same thing. Just the better one, Veil of Summer, which is $4 for an uncommon. Also allows you to draw a card if somebody has already cast a blue spell this turn. So that's a really good card, but Autumn's Veil is going to be kind of your silence effect. Like, it'll do in a pinch. Well, if you lead with either one of these cards, they're basically identical. So you'll cast your Autumn's Veil, ideally, before you go into this very all-in combo of Chain of Smog with Witherbloom Apprentice in play. But it's 4 mana win the game. A plus B, 4 mana win the game if all goes well. Or it's 5 mana A, B, C combo if you're going to wait until you've got a kind of Grand Abolisher effect. And I would argue that we have basically 3 in the deck. I would say Apple of Eden, especially in budget, is a very suitable third version of a Grand Abolisher or a silence effect. Apple of Eden is normally kind of hard to cast, but in this deck that just pukes out Wingdings, very easy to cast. For 4 specifically colorless mana, this is a legendary artifact that says you can tap it and pay 4 life, sacrifice it. You choose an opponent, you look at their hand, you exile every card in their hand, and you can play those cards this turn. And you can use mana of any type to cast, including the Wingdings that you're generating with Belbe. So there's that little bit of extra. There's that really kind of a lot of extra synergy. So maybe we go turn 3, we cast our Apple of Eden, and then turn 4, we're going for our win, and we have 6 mana. And we can exile somebody's entire hand, and now we can cast any card in their hand, and we can use that 6 colorless mana. We can use all of our mana to cast those spells. Like, we can use any of our mana, and it fixes your mana. So you can use the Wingding mana to cast your opponent's counterspell. So what you do is, if you're going for your risky combo finish of Chain of Smog with Wither Bloom Apprentice, you can use the Apple of Eden to choose not only the most likely to interact opponent, but also, so the most likely to interact opponent, say there's a control deck at the table with blue mana open. You can choose that opponent. Maybe he's a blue-white player. So that's going to be the guy that's got the blue counter spells and the white removal spells that could mess up your plan. So you can sacrifice your Apple of Eden, and not only do you no longer need to worry about that guy getting involved with your combo, but you can use his countermeasures to stop anybody else who might happen to have interaction. So it's pretty well going to get the job done. It's going to be your Grand Abolisher, but also it's just a very valuable piece to have if you start to gas out. Now, the cards that we are gathered here today to talk about. How are we doing on time, guys? Okay. We're nearing the end. I wanted to show goldfishing. The Endstone. So the Endstone is 7 mana. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card. That's nuts. That is freaking nuts. And it says at the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes 20 again. In Commander, becomes 20 again. No matter how much you've spent, no matter if you've peered into the abyss or ad nauseum, we're not running ad nauseum in this deck, but if you've peered into the abyss and used a bunch of whatever, you've tutored 10 times, well, you've either peered into the abyss or you've tutored, some crazy high number of times with Rasaketh. You're low on life. It's going to take you back up to 20. So we've got all these big, crazy new payoffs that were not in the deck the first time I showed it to you. And Crick, which is half payoff and half mana fixing. So the ones that we didn't have before that we have now, we've got Infernal Sovereign, which is the same thing as the Endstone, except here you skip your draw step, but you also have a 6/6 flying trampler. And we don't care about our draw step at this point. This thing goes totally ham. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, you draw a card and lose a life. So kind of the same thing. I had a goldfish game where I used Saw in half on Infernal Sovereign, which makes 2 Infernal Sovereigns, right? And you draw a card off of casting the Saw in half, because so we've got the Infernal Sovereign in play. We cast Saw in half, targeting the Infernal Sovereign. So that Infernal Sovereign sees you, casts the Saw in half, so you draw a card. Now you've got 2 Infernal Sovereigns in play. So every time you cast a Mana Dork or a Dark Ritual or whatever, you're drawing 2 cards. Like, good luck losing that game. And there's some other big payoffs. Oh yeah, we didn't have Apple of Eden. We didn't have the Endstone. We did have God Pharohs Statue, and that is a disgusting thing to do to somebody on turn 2, guys. We didn't have this payoff. Well, no, we did have the God Pharohs Statue. So we didn't have Apple of Eden. We didn't have the Endstone. We didn't have Nexus of Becoming, which is another way to just get super far ahead on turn 2. So we go turn 1 pinger, turn 2 Belbe. We ping everybody. We play Nexus of Becoming. Now, at the beginning of combat on all of your turns from here on out, you're going to draw an extra card. Then you can exile any of your big fat payoff artifacts or creatures from your hand. If you do, they come into play as a 3/3 golem instead of whatever they are. Who gives a shit? So we could go turn 2, Nexus of Becoming. Turn 3, draw an extra card we drew into the Endstone. We drop it into play as a 3/3 golem for free. Then we make our 6 Belbe mana. And now we can just keep casting things and going off with the Endstone. What else did we not have? We did some changing around. We didn't have the Veil of Summer. It was more expensive than this when I first designed the deck. We didn't have Lively Dirge. We had a bunch of bullshit. We did have Tooth and Nail. Oh, we didn't have Demonic Council. A lot of the cards and a lot of the oftentimes when this deck plays, it's putting things in the graveyard. Demonic Council will very often just be Demonic Tutor. Even if it isn't, we actively want Rasaketh, which we also did not have in the deck when I first showed it to you. And we didn't have enough pingers, but we didn't have the Rasaketh. We didn't have Dark Petition. That's a new include. Dark Petition is really nice in this deck. A lot of these tutors that you can't play in a lot of decks, like Diabolic Tutor, get a lot better when you're consistently making colorless mana basically for free. But Dark Petition in particular, this makes 3 mana, so you have to pay black for it. I'm sorry, it costs 3 colorless mana, and you have to pay black, so you can use 3 of your Belbe mana, and then you can immediately replace that Belbe mana with black. The Spell Mastery ability says if there are 2 or more instants and or sorceries in your graveyard, add black to your mana pool. So oftentimes this is going to be not only easy to cast, but it's going to be a mana fixing ritual in the deck. See what I mean? Not a lot of squinting required. You just have to read the card. What else is new? Let's talk about some of the new pingers. There's 2 new 1-drops. Oh, this is a new pinger. We've got a new 2-drop. This is a 9-cent common that's perfect for the deck. It's a 1/3. Whenever this creature attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Perfect. Ping everybody, make your 6 Belbe mana. You want the turn 1, but you'll settle for a turn 2. Turn 2 is fine. That still gets you to turn 3, Tooth and Nail, Entwined. Or turn 3, Rasaketh. Or turn 3, and Rasaketh with an extra creature in play that you can sacrifice to your Rasaketh to tutor up your combo, or to tutor up the pieces that you've got to stop your opponents from messing with your combo. The pingers are not... oh, that's right. The pingers we did not have, the 1-mana pingers we did not have are Tiny Bones Joins Up and Okiba Reckoner Raid. These both have strengths and weaknesses. They're both real damn good. They both are... They do have like this timing thing. Okay, so let me just read the cards. Okiba Reckoner Raid says... it's a 1-mana saga, which is interesting. It says on verse 1 and verse 2... when they go off, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Just exactly what you want out of the deck, right? 1-mana pinger. On turn 2, it's going to ping. On turn 3, it's going to ping. Then it's going to transform. What does it transform into? Well, it transforms into not only an evasive threat, but also a body that you have to sack, which comes up in the deck. It's an evasive guy that you can use to still trigger your Belbe, get that extra Belbe mana. But it's also, a body. So you have to be a little bit careful. Like there will be times when you'll want to not cast this on turn 1, even though you could, because you want it for turns like 3 and 4. So maybe you would hold off and cast this on turn 2. Or a lot of times maybe you'll have a mana dork and it's not exactly obvious to you based on the hand you're starting with, whether you ought to be starting with a mana dork or a pinger. Maybe in those cases some of the time you'll want to set up your mana, get your mana set up, and then on turn 2 do the Okiba and like maybe a talisman, and then turn 3 you'll get the Okiba ping and you'll have all the mana you need to win the game. Tiny Bones is the other new addition. Tiny Bones only activates once. It'll activate more than once, but it only activates once in a way that's super important to you. So that kind of sucks. But the good news is you get to decide when it happens. And so the better you get playing this deck, the more you're going to probably sandbag your Belbe. Like if you're not ready to go off, you shouldn't usually be running your Belbe out. Sometimes you will to be mana efficient. There's a lot of nuance in that. But sometimes you won't want to run your Belbe out straight away anyway. But if your 1 mana pinger that you have, if your only kind of pinger to generate your Belbe mana is Tiny Bones joins up, then specifically you want to wait. Well, let me read the card. When Tiny Bones joins up, enters the battlefield, any number of target players each discard a card. So that's fine. You just get a little disruption out of it. Then the more important part is whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, any number of target players each mill a card and lose 1 life. So you can, if you've got the right pieces, you can go turn 1, Tiny Bones joins up, and then on turn 2, when you cast your Belbe, you get your ping, which generates your 6 mana, which allows you to go turn 2 God Pharohs Statue and just put a vice grip on the game. Or maybe it's like, turn 3 and you play your Belbe and you do Endstone, right? Or Nexus of Becoming, which really is a grotesque card in this deck. I think I've pretty much went over all the new ads. Is there anything else? I'm just going to, I'm going to pause it and take a look. The only 2 other new things are Bogart Trawler, which I think we kind of talked about, and Disciple of Freyles. Both of these are gas when you need gas, and they're lands when you need lands. So it was always real difficult for me to figure out where I wanted to be exactly between about 30 and 32 lands. So I landed on 30 lands with 2 of these very useful ETB untapped MDFCs. It's a land when you need it to be a land. It's an effect when you need the effect. We are still playing a lot of disruptive pieces. So Bogart Trawler really does fit well into the deck. And we've got a lot of big fat ass creatures, so Disciple of Freyles obviously fits very well into the deck. If we can go like turn 3 Terastodon and blow up everybody's most important piece, and then like the next turn cast our Disciple and draw 9 cards, we are in the game, right? The other new piece, I was able to fit Elvish Spirit Guide in the deck, which I do think is actually really, really important. I used to have a different feel about Belbe, and I thought we needed to be getting more stable mana, so I wasn't as high on the Elvish Spirit Guide, and I knew that even though Belbe costs exactly 2 colored pips to cast, it's not that important. In fact, you almost never would want to run Belbe out on turn 1. But a lot of times in this deck, we're drawing a tremendous number of cards all in one turn. And those are the turns where Elvish Spirit Guide is very important. And a lot of our win conditions are like that. I say win conditions, but cards like the Endstone and Infernal Sovereign are basically going to be what you're going to storm off until you get what you need to stop your opponents from doing what they want to do, and then often on the next turn, sometimes on the very turn, just cleaning it up and winning the game with your combo. You're going to find a Veil, you're going to find your Witherbloom, you're going to find your Chain of Smog, and you're going to go off, right? Or you're going to cast a massive Stargaze, and sometimes massive. Like sometimes you'll Stargaze for 18. I mean like X equals 9. Look at the top 18 cards, choose 8. In those cases, having Dark Ritual and Simian Spirit Guide in the deck, it can be very, very helpful. Or obviously Peering into the Abyss. If you just kind of hard cast this off your Belbe mana, the more rituals you've got in the deck, the more likely you are to convert that into a win. I mean, you've got ways to do it with still having floating mana. But bumping into extra mana is always going to feel really good when you're trying to close out with a Peer into the Abyss. I mean, maybe you Culling Ritualed into it and it doesn't really matter. You've got 7 mana from Culling Ritual and 6 Belbe mana, and you just unloaded a Peer into the Abyss, you'll be fine. But sometimes it'll feel pretty good to have the sort of ritual mana in the deck. I think that is... Oh, and Crick. Same thing. Same thing. I think I already had Orin Frostfang in the deck. Yeah, so Rasaketh. That's the other big new piece. I was playing a Staxier version. I mean, we're still playing Lodestone Golem. We're still playing Phyrexian Revoker. We're still using Thorn of Amethyst. We're still Staxy. Apple of Eden has a Staxy effect. God Pharohs Statue, obviously, a very Staxy, just a damning effect. So we used to play Villas, and now we want Rasaketh because the deck is just doing more stormy, faster, bursty things. And we're just more likely to be in a situation now where we need to, and have the resources to go for the win straight away. That's the new deck, guys. That's it's gonna win with either Wither, Smog, or just by either hard casting Triskelion, which can do work in the deck. You know, you can ping people and get your Belbe mana. But Triskelion, and then maybe the next turn, Mycaeus, or maybe you cast a turn 2 Nexus of Becoming, and you drop Mycaeus into play as a 3/3 Golem. Go to combat, get your 6 Belbe mana, play your Triskelion, or you just go like turn 3, Tooth and Nail, Entwined, or you go turn 3, find your Tooth and Nail, turn 4, Entwine the Tooth and Nail, win the game with Mike and Trike. That's it. That's the deck. Lots of good removal, a nice tutor suite. The deck just it got a major shot of adrenaline straight into the vein. That's my video for you today, guys. I know I talked about doing the Vryn thing, and that is coming. The Vryn thing, if you're not familiar. Buddy of mine and I, a guy from the Discord, the guy that did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we did a video together going over his version of, oh God, what's the, maybe I should look it up. Hepatra, it's Hepatra. He and I we kind of did a challenge where we were each of us building our own version of Vryn the Relentless, and then we were going to do a podcast together. Podcast version of a YouTube video together where we both present the decks to each other. We built them totally on our own, and then we're going to bring them together and talk about things that we did that are the same and whatever we might have done that's different, and just have kind of a discussion about it. That's still coming, just wasn't able to come together today. Until next time, may all your outs be live. May all your I didn't have Karn either. That's a new ad. So we've got more damning stacks effects, more just crazy draw effects, more win the game on the spot effects than ever before. Belbe has more pingers. The strategy can just actually work now very consistently. I'm tempted to, this has gone way too long, but I'm actually tempted to do goldfishing and just call it, fuck it, it's an hour and a half video. But we'll maybe do 2 videos. You guys got to see how this thing works. The deck fucking works, guys. Until next time, this has gone on long enough. Word to your mothers, word to all of your family members. Peace be with you and also with you, and even you, even though you've not been so kind to me, peace be with even you. Namaste, nerds.